Yeah, yeah, I was thinking the same.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2025 meeting of the Special Interest Group associated with Exercise Science Education. It's a pleasure to welcome you here and a pleasure to welcome you to Atlanta. My name is Dr. Christopher Berger, and I am the senior co-chair of this Special Interest Group. And that means that I'm going to be rotating off in the next hour or two. Couldn't have done it without some wonderful colleagues, and you'll be able to meet them this evening. Before we get started with the business of the Special Interest Group, I wanted to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded. And so if you do have any questions or comments for the benefits of our members who are chiming in remotely, I'll be repeating questions from the audience just to make sure that they can hear. So there's that. If you need to see this later, we'll have a nice clean recording for you in that capacity. You'll notice here on the right, we've got a QR code here. If you are new to the interest group, we are very happy to have you join us. You can just use your smartphone with this QR code. We've double checked to make sure that it's up to date and it's accurate. And if you've got any problems becoming a member with this QR code, my colleague here to the right, Jonathan Howard, is more than happy to answer your questions. I've also circulated some paper, because that's my style, some paper QR codes, and then sign up on the back. We will keep your name and identity confidential, but we would like to make sure that we have an accurate census of who's part of our special interest group. If you're new to this meeting, a lot of what we do during our special interest group meeting annually is we do a little bit of housekeeping. And so I've got some business. It's sort of a state of the union for the special interest group, but I promise you that we will keep that brief because we've got some other fun things we want to talk about yet this evening. So here's the agenda. I want to make some introductions. We'll talk a little bit about getting some meetings and some proposals endorsed by the SIG for presentation in 2026. We'll talk a little bit about some webinars and sessions that we've had on our own this year, this past academic year. The faculty newsletter is something that's a new, exciting chapter for us. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. We've got a webpage issue. And then, because I'm rotating off, we will have some information for you from our potential co-chair nominees, and we'll introduce those tonight so you can make the votes accordingly. And then really the showstopper for this evening is going to be the announcement of our Walters Kluwer Innovation in Teaching Award recipient. And they will have a period of time when they're going to talk to us a little bit about innovation in teaching. And then my favorite part of the evening is when we can just have a little faculty lounge and we can talk as professors off the record, if that's the case. And we'll have some closing remarks. So with that said, I do want to have another showstopper. We're very fortunate tonight to be joined by Dr. Timothy Lohman, and he is going to be talking with us very briefly about an exciting possibility that we have to interact with some work that he's doing. So I'll turn the floor over to him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to be here today. We have an institute that I've formed called Global Health and Body Composition Institute. And in that, we have an online course all about body composition. I've been doing research for the last 50 years in this area. There are many, many methods becoming a big deal. Instead of measuring body weight, measure body composition. We're not doing it well. We're covering it in courses, but not really. We have an online course. We have a consulting service here. We'd love to work with you and get a real good curriculum content message into your curriculum somehow. And so I'm leaving you a couple of handouts all about it. I'd love you to come and pick up one, email me, and so we can work with you in any way we can to further this body composition education. Muscle, bone, fat, so important in health and aging, our kids, the whole gamut of things. We've got some great things. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lohman and I met in Boston last year when we had our meeting in Boston, and the meeting timing was perfect because this interest group had as one of our webinars the topic of some hesitancy that we're feeling in the classroom about body composition assessment. Students are more, in my experience, students are more and more squeamish about having it done, and they're more squeamish about doing it themselves. And wouldn't you know, I stopped by his booth and I said, I think we might have a nice little partnership here, because if you're certified and if you're credentialed and you've got that expertise, that helps a little bit with what we talked about with some of the legal liabilities associated with that these days. It's a shame, but that's the world we live in right now. So thank you very much for coming on with the show. The first thing I wanted to mention is that this special interest group is getting some traction with the American College of Sports Medicine. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how we've gained some attention and some traction with the college tonight. But one of the things that we can do for you, if you are interested in exercise sciences education, if you've got a proposal idea, if you've got something that's on your mind about pedagogy, route that idea to us. And what we can do is we can give you some constructive feedback. And if you get it to me, I probably will. But we get you some constructive feedback, and then we can quote unquote endorse your proposal and route that through the programming committee and hopefully elevate your status as a proposal. And I'm sorry to say, we did not, we didn't endorse this one. We didn't know about this one, but we're just finishing up a session in 207, the Science of Learning, Transforming Exercise, Science, and Education. If you were there, it was literally standing room only. There was not a lot of places to sit down. So this idea that there's no interest in pedagogy or exercise science education in the college, I think is a myth. I mean, it's out there. So if you're motivated to submit a proposal, let us do what we can to help you and get that in front of the committee. I think that's really important. And we'll do what we can to get that, get the attention that you deserve. Next, we've had some sessions of our own, aside from what may be presented in Salt Lake City next year. We have committed to having a fall webinar and a spring webinar, and we have fulfilled that commitment for the, can't believe it's been 3 years, but for all 3 years that I've been on this committee. In the fall, we had a wonderful session, very well attended, on advising the pre-health professions exercise science student. We had admissions officers, if I can do this in alphabetical order, every admissions officer from like athletic training all the way to PA, physician assistant, really well attended sessions, because if you're like me, you get a lot of students who are asking you questions about the application process, and you might have to write letters of recommendation. We decided to go straight to the source with these admissions officers and find out what we needed to know as faculty. And so it was well attended. It was a great session, and we recorded that, and the link is on our Facebook page. So if you couldn't attend, you can attend. In the spring, we decided on a potpourri, kind of a catch-all of challenges that we're seeing in the classroom. We had some structure associated with, we talked about AI, if I recall correct. We had some structure, but it was just a wonderful faculty lounge where we were able to just talk as college professors and kind of talk about some of the challenges that we see with our students. And so I can't tell you what's coming up for fall, but I finished up that session next door, having a very interesting conversation with one of our colleagues about this growing interest among university administrators in the development of little certificate programs and little minor programs, that sort of thing. We were talking about that, and I said, you know, a lot of us don't know how to do that, and you're doing that, and here's something that worked well for you, and here's something that didn't work well for you. And she's at a 2-year college, and I said, well, would you like to co-present with somebody who's maybe at a Research One university? And kind of talked her into it. I kind of coerced her into it. But, you know, I said that might make a nice little webinar for us sometime this fall or this spring. So if you've got ideas for our webinar, we're always open to that sort of thing. But they've been pretty diverse topics, and they've been pretty well attended. So we're excited to not just have this as a means of educating you and putting you together and networking. We've got something in the fall, we've got something in the spring. So stay tuned for that. If you're a member, we're very diligent about sending out those emails to make sure that you know what's going on. So just stay tuned for your email. And that's Jonathan's job. He's
I usually get
very, thank God for that, because I get enough email, do enough email as it is. So we had a wonderful attendance this year. My colleague, Deba, is in charge of our Facebook page, and thank God it's her, not me. And all of that stuff is posted on our Facebook page. So there is that. Next, I mentioned that we are gaining attention and we're getting some traction with the American College of Sports Medicine in ways that we have not gotten in the past. Out of the blue, a few months ago, Caitlin Kinzer from the ACSM sent me an email, and then we ended up having a little call, a short call with each other. She has a faculty newsletter that goes out. I cut and pasted some statistics from our new website. About 1,600 of our faculty within the ACSM get this newsletter. And what Caitlin said to me is, we need ideas and we need content. And to get your name and your content out there, be in touch with Caitlin, because if you've got an idea, if you've got an article, if there's anything that you think is an important announcement with respect to our faculty being interested, even if it doesn't have a direct connection with exercise science, maybe content oriented and topical oriented, be in touch with Caitlin, because Caitlin sees our special interest group as a real opportunity to connect that expertise that we have with with newsworthy items that she wants to disseminate and keep that newsletter as relevant as possible. So again, I just cut and pasted some stuff from our webpage. We got, looks like 6 issues annually. And I pressed her a little bit on the publication schedule. So if you're interested in that, snap a photo, or you've got, we'll post this Caitlin's email address, and we get that newsletter really well involved with our SIG. Now, I've got a question for the group. We've talked about this before. If you attended our webinar in the fall, at least in the spring, if I recall correctly, we have a web page. We have a social media presence in Facebook, but we also have this web page. And to be perfectly honest, I completely forgot about it. But there it is as a URL. And it needs a sponsor. It needs somebody to take care of it, make sure that links are working, content is up to date. And I talked with my team about this, and I wondered if we should just sunset it, just get rid of it altogether, or if you think that there's some value to it. If you think that there's some value to keeping our webpage, we may ask you to help us with it a little bit, just to make sure the content's up to date. But just out of curiosity, the thought strikes me now, did you all know that we had, the SIG had a webpage? Is there anybody, some people did. What do you think? Is it valuable? Should we do it?
I didn't know we had it until I looked at it on the slide when I put it together. Being honest.
But there's quite a bit of content on there. It's just some of it's out of date, so it needs some TLC. So I'm not going to put you on the spot here. I kind of just did, but I'm going to try not to put you on the spot anymore. But give us some thoughts on whether or not we need to sunset this thing, because it's got a home, and that home needs to find a new home. So there is that. Okay. I'm going to turn the session over to my colleague here for a minute, but we got to replace me. I probably should step out now.
First of all, can we give a nice congratulations for maybe getting off or whatever for Dr. Berger for his service for 3 years? Has been very much appreciated. We are sad to see him go, but grateful that he doesn't have to do this commitment anymore, right? We all know committee work, it's a lot, and we're happy to be off and sad to go, but he's been crucial in the last 3 years for what we've done and the webinars and bring us up to date. And so we're very thankful for that. And so over the last 3 years, Chris has worked very diligently on our Innovation Teaching Award, working with Waltz Galore for what that looks like. And so this year we're looking for people who want to step in as a co-chair. And really their main responsibilities, as we've decided as co-chairs, is instead of everyone having to learn everything and try to master something in a year and move on, why don't we bring people on and give them a focus for 3 years? And so this year we're asking for a co-chair that wants to come alongside of us and focus on the Innovation Teaching Award. So making sure we have the sponsorship, going through that nomination process, kind of heading up that review, and then working with our winner to make sure we have slides available and everything. And so we sent out a call this year multiple times. You got lots of emails from me, and I apologize. I try to keep them as minimal as possible, but want to keep you up to date. And we have 2 people who have been nominated and agreed to be nominated for this co-chair position and focus on our teaching award. And that is Dr. Marino and Dr. Chetlet. I apologize, I'm terrible with names, but it is what it is. And so we want to give them, both of them are actually here at this meeting, which is great. And I want to give both of them an opportunity just to talk to you for a minute or two about what kind of they see and what their reason for wanting to be a co-chair on this SIG is. And then we'll provide you a link to be able to vote over the next couple of weeks to replace Dr. Berger, who we'll miss, but glad that he can take a step off and get maybe a little bit of a break. So first of all, I would love to invite Dr. Moreno up. If you would, there's a lot there, you can read it, but feel free to step up to the mic and just, if you want to say a couple words, you can. If not, I'll read what is here, but most people can read anyways. If you, yeah.
Why you're not that wordy.
That's me. You sent it and I just put it on there. I did. It's my fault. Yeah, so I know. I don't like it either, but you know, we have to.
Kids, I feel like I just yell all the time. So I'm gonna yell into the mic. Okay, hi, Julie Marino from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I serve as a senior lecturer there and an exercise science program director. And I've been a member of the SIG for many years. I think the greatest benefit has been connecting with other faculty and other instructors, sharing ideas, getting new ideas. Like the spring webinar, talking about challenges that we're facing in our classroom and navigating those together. It's been really beneficial. I do think, like Chris said, the session at 4 o'clock, there were people sitting on the floor, standing around the room. So I do believe the SIG has the potential to play a role in bringing more of this programming to the annual meeting. There's definitely a desire for it. So I think that's our job. I also think the SIG could play a role in supporting programs that are exploring or applying for program accreditation. So I've had a lot of side conversations with faculty and program directors about accreditation. And as a program director of CASCI and COAS accredited programs, and as a newly minted COAS site visitor, people have lots of questions and lots of concerns, and I think the SIG could also support our ACSM faculty in that way. So thanks for your consideration.
Awesome, thank you. You're already up. I love it.
Evening, I'm Amber Chalette, and I am an assistant professor in kinesiology at Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches, Texas. You probably never heard of it. It's fun. That's more than I thought. So, I've been there for 4 years, and previously I was 6 years at a different appointment. I was privileged to be nominated to win the Walters Kluwer Award last year with my colleagues and give that presentation. And I got to sit on the committee that was reviewing applicants this year. So it's fun to see that process. I got involved in the SIG, I think during COVID, when in the Facebook group, and everybody was like, what in the world do we do? Exercise is not online, it's face-to-face type program. And so that was really helpful for me to be with a community of other faculty members that wanted to help and wanted to share ideas. So this group has been very beneficial for me in my teaching. I want to specifically help grow the Walters Kluwer Award awareness of it. I felt like we came home and we were really excited, like we won a national award and nobody cared. And so I want to work with Walters Kluwer to give us, like, you know, at least have a plaque to put on your wall when you win and you do all the work for the application, and some press releases and things like that. So, and that's, you know, helpful to serve you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're full of QR codes, right? So this is a QR code that links you to voting. It'll be open till June 7th, and we'll kind of announce who won that. Let them know. I do have this on the last slide of tonight as well. So if you don't vote now, you're thinking about it, don't worry. I'll put the QR code out, and then you'll probably get another email from me next week, early next week, with this QR code, along with their biopics that they've sent me, just to remind people to vote, because we want all of our members to have a voice, even the ones who may not be able to join us tonight for various reasons, right? So we thank you for that. Thank you for our nominees, and you'll be hearing from me one way or the other, right? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris, but we're going to talk about now our Walters Kluwer Innovation and Teaching Award, and I do want to recognize that we do have some representatives from them tonight. If they wouldn't mind standing, I see them in the back, and just give them a round of applause for their support for us. We are greatly appreciative not only for what they do for the SIG, but what they do for our industry and education. And I would imagine that if we talk to everyone in here, you're using at least one, if not multiple, of their texts throughout your entire curriculum. And so we are very appreciative of their support here. And so I'll turn it over to Chris to talk a little bit about the process and introduce our winner for tonight. Thank you.
Not so fast.
Oh, okay.
Because as I rotate off and we get a new chair, a co-chair, I want to make a sincere thanks to Deba, who's online in virtual world, Jonathan to my right, Rochelle to my right. I couldn't have done anything that I did without them. Very grateful. But the reason why I wanted to come back to this, give you a little bit more time with the code, but to come back to this is just to let you know that this interest group is in phenomenal shape. We have more members than we've ever had. We've got more recognition than we've ever had. And I think 2026, when we start getting some of these submissions for the meeting next year, people are really going to see the significance of what we do. And so if to the extent that this meeting is kind of a State of the Union address for the SIG, we're in phenomenal shape. And I couldn't be happier than to have my colleagues with all that we've done. I couldn't even start to make the list, but we're in great shape. So thanks so much for that. Okay. So with that said, this slide's a little bit misleading. When we put the call out for proposals or for teaching award nomination or teaching award applications this year, I want to say that we got 9 applications this year. My memory's failing, but we had a very high number of submissions. Last year we had a higher number, but the number of submissions that we've got for this award has been beating records as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know. And so I'm really proud of that. One of the reasons why I'm proud of that is because, as I was saying to a couple of our colleagues earlier today, this meeting is chock-a-block of research and what people are doing in the lab, and that seems to get recognized, and it should, absolutely it should. But there are people who did that research because they bought out of teaching, and that left it to us to do that. And frankly, I think we need some recognition for ourselves. And so I think we do. And so one of the commitments that I made when I was campaigning for this position 3 years ago was that we really polish this and we really promote this, and we've got some phenomenal submissions. And so when we got our call, we went through our review process to select our recipient tonight. I asked the people who didn't get the award if they would be okay if I could at least put their names on the screen to recognize some of the wonderful submissions, because our job was not easy. I'm telling you, it was hard. Chris Cleveland, Southwest Minnesota State University, submitted a proposal on research-based approaches to teaching and learning. Is Chris here? We're happy to have that submission. Julie Larson from Washington State, strength training and conditioning skill checks. Julie, are you here? Phenomenal. We're so happy to have that submission. And I know that I don't think Luke is here because I think he told me he couldn't make it to this meeting, but Springfield College did a wonderful proposal on IMRAD writing in applied exercise sciences. So we had a robust number of submissions. So the fact that these people are up here is recognition of all the hard work that's being done. And I just am committed to making sure that we recognize that, because it's not just about research. There are those of us who teach, and that needs to be recognized. And the emphasis that I would make on that is for these, hotshot researchers who seem to get the attention in the ACSM, you know what? I've gone to sessions now where I know you know your stuff. I know that you're an expert in the field, and I go to your session, but I'm still not exactly sure I understand what your research is all about, or I'm not really sure I understand what you're trying to get across. And the reason why I share that with all of you, because you know this as well as I do, that essentially effective communication is good teaching. And if you can't effectively communicate your research, well, then you probably need a little bit of teaching, a little bit of teaching instruction. And isn't that going to be even more true now when you stop and think about what's going on in the world of grant funding and that sort of thing? You had better be able to communicate your research in a clear, didactic fashion, or you might not get your grant funded. And so I think there's a real case to be made from our special interest group on the importance of communicating the science that we do. And I think this is the home of all of that stuff. And so I just want to make sure that any opportunity that I had to recognize all of you and our colleagues for the hard work that's being done in the classroom, whether they get a fancy award or not, is to be recognized, because it's to the benefit of our students and to the benefit of our profession. So with that, phenomenal job. But we had to make a decision. May I have the envelope? We made a decision, and it was not easy. But I'd like you to congratulate our recipient of the 2025 Walters Kluwer Innovation Teaching Award, Dr. Sarah Kovacs from Temple University in Philadelphia.
wherever you want to stand. Do you want to stand there? Do you want to stand there? We've got it here for you.
I just wanted to emphasize that certificate is, it's not wet from my backpack or wet from my backpack. It's just where you're sitting, it's like that. So thank you, Sarah. The floor is yours. This is our big showstopper tonight, so forward and backwards.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Walters Kluwer as well as this special interest group for this very exciting award and opportunity to share with you just a little bit about one assignment that I've completed in one of my courses. It has been very exciting to talk with many of you about excellence when it comes to teaching. I've had a few conversations today that we want to continue this conversation, and I hope that we do, not just here at the conference, but certainly beyond as well. When it comes to the project that I shared for this particular assignment, this actually emerged from something that I had the opportunity to participate in as a student. I'm sure many of you have as well, in a journal club assignment. But when working with students, undergraduate students in this case, the assignment has looked a little bit different. This active learning journal club assignment is something that I began in my research methods and kinesiology course about 3 years ago. The very first time that I conducted it, I thought, I did this as a graduate student. I'm doing something similar in practice. It will go great. And it absolutely did not. And it's continuously evolved to the assignment that you're going to see today. And it's an assignment that I hope continues to evolve moving forward. Just to give you a little bit of background when it comes to this assignment prior to its implementation was included in a class that really did not have active learning opportunities. We know, all of us know, the benefits of active learning, improvements in critical thinking, in motivation, in test scores, in passing academic courses. It has numerous benefits. And unfortunately, in this research methods class, when I initially inherited this course, that did not exist. And the only time students were truly critically analyzing or applying research was in standard assignments such as quizzes or exams. When I asked students at the very start of the semester, how are we feeling about research methods? I have a feeling all of you have had this experience. They kind of at you and they are not enthused. They tend to report low self-confidence when it comes to not only reading scientific literature, but also translating that scientific literature. And unfortunately, what I've seen time and time again is that they have trouble evaluating peer-evaluated research, applying it to their future practice, to their clients, to those individuals they're going to be working with after graduation. I have a feeling all of you have had that experience. And ultimately, these challenges are not unique to my students or your students. We see this across exercise-related disciplines that students really struggle with critically evaluating and translating scientific literature, which is where this active learning journal club assignment ultimately came from. The goal of this assignment has been to address these challenges. In addition to addressing these challenges, the goal was certainly to integrate active learning and all of the benefits we know are associated with active learning, to give students the chance to do what all of us are doing here at ACSM, practice professionally disseminating research and key information, and ultimately to promote inclusion for students in this class. Make sure that everyone had the opportunity to learn and participate regardless of the style or the approach that worked best for them. This assignment included a multitude of different active learning activities, all of which are evidence-based and can support learning and understanding in one component or another. The majority of the project was collaborative. Students needed to work with their peers to identify an article that they would be presenting as their journal club presentation. They read the article, they discussed the article, and they presented as a group. They were required as part of the presentation to analyze and apply the article, and I'll share a little bit more about that component momentarily. New this academic semester, students didn't just present, much like we heard in our earlier education session, we did a little recall afterwards, and students were actually responsible for leading active learning in the form of a brief recall review. I called them test questions, but students actually led the active learning after their presentation. It was hands down my favorite part My educator heart was so excited to see my students actively learning by leading active learning activities. New this semester, thanks to student feedback on this assignment, we also integrated a social media communication. Students are translating literature certainly in person, but how are they communicating in media as well? They needed to integrate a social media post into their presentation. Presentations were student-led. They needed to have professional skills on display during their presentation. And lastly, students who were not presenting didn't get the chance to tune out and take a nap during these presentations. Afterwards, there was discussion. And this discussion, the first time I included it in this assignment, was terrible. We opened the floor for questions and comments, and I was the only person who ended up doing any talking. So instead, in this interactive questioning component, students actually received some prompts that would help them with questions, and I'll share those with you here in just a moment. The assignment really had three key components. First, students work collaboratively during class time. About 45 minutes each week was dedicated to providing students in-class opportunities to work with their groups, to talk about the assignment, to talk about the article, and ultimately have the chance to ask me questions in real time if they needed any assistance. After they spent several weeks working as a group to develop this presentation, it was time to present. But as we all know, every good assignment also has a rubric, and students did receive a very detailed rubric for this assignment. This is an abridged version, but students in their presentation needed to share an overview of the article and tie in content that we'd already discussed. They needed to talk to me about the study design. Don't just tell me the results, talk to me about the statistics. Why did they do the statistical tests that they did? What was the purpose? What were the key findings? That was the easy part. The most important components of this were actually pieces that students couldn't directly draw from the article they were reading. They needed to talk about strengths and limitations, and it could not only be those that were listed in the article. They needed to apply the article to the field of kinesiology. Why did it matter to them as kinesiology students, future kinesiology professionals, and what did this mean for their future clients and participants? They were graded on their presentation, their professionalism, those active learning questions that they did at the end of their presentation as a knowledge check. These presentations could be included on some of their course exams, so there was buy-in to make them meaningful within the context of the course. They presented their social media post, and much like what we see at the end of many manuscripts, students were responsible for reporting their group member contributions. They needed to be evenly distributed, but all students did not have to contribute to all components. As I mentioned, while the majority of the assignment was the group component and they received a group score, students in the audience also needed to be actively engaged, and they were able to actively engage through this interactive questioning. They received individual grades for this second component, and essentially they received a score for asking a relevant and meaningful question and using a prompt that was provided. These prompts were not necessarily required. I did not check and make sure they perfectly read from the prompt. It was just a starting place for students, but these prompts were derived from what is known as conversational moves, easy to adapt to any course or format that you might have, but gave students a starting place for asking questions if they just didn't know where to start. That was the third and final component of this assignment. So they work as a group, they present, and they're also responsible for asking course questions. This assignment was spread throughout the semester. As you can see, there were a lot of different components, and it actually does span the entire 15 weeks of this course. We heard this in our last education focus session, so thank you for setting me up for this statement. We started off our active learning assignment. We started off our research methods course with research on active learning. What is it? Why does it matter? What are my expectations? And we also use evidence-based asset mapping to really make sure the groups were not just peers who wanted to be with their friends. Rather, students were bringing diverse skill sets as well as research-related competence to the table. In the third week, students received that rubric, they were introduced to their groups, and in week 4, we were off and running with the collaborative components. Learning from my first time error, I used to just give students in class time to work on their presentation, and as I would pop around, I would hear about everything except the article they were supposed to be discussing. So we now do very clear agendas. Students have agendas, they fill in components of the agenda, and additionally, they share group reflections so that I'm able to check in with them throughout weeks 4 through 10. And if they don't want to tell me in person, I'm able to read those reflections outside of the course. Week 11 through 14, so after we've covered the heavy content on statistical methods, on interpreting and translating findings, students engage in those presentations and interactive questioning, and all good work needs some feedback. Certainly, this assignment has greatly evolved over the last several years, and I asked for student reflection and feedback. The very first time I asked for feedback, I thought, I need to brace myself, right? I'm asking students to work collaboratively throughout the semester. The very first time I implemented it in this format, I asked students in our first week, how do you like to participate? How do you like to engage? And the first answer I got was any way except group work. So I really was mentally prepared. They're not going to be enthused, but hopefully they've taken something away from it. They're asked to either strongly agree, disagree, so on, with several different statements, including that the journal club assignment helped them to better understand research methods, that working in a group to analyze and present actually improved their research method skills and their overall confidence in research methods after this experience. This is 2 semesters worth of data. And what we find is that largely students agreed or strongly agreed with these statements. Additionally, they were asked to provide feedback on the interactive questioning components. Did they like the prompts? Did they not like the prompts? Did they feel like the environment was conducive to having this conversation in class, or was it a very forced discussion? And overwhelmingly, we saw that students either strongly agreed or agreed that the prompts were helpful, and that the atmosphere was conducive to sharing their opinions, their thoughts, and their ideas. Probably one of my happiest moments in this assignment is there was one class where we just ran out of time. We had to end class and cut off the discussion because it was so ongoing, which was a really wonderful problem to have. While this assignment has overall been very impactful, there certainly have been changes and challenges throughout this process. We are probably all thinking to ourselves, 45 minutes per week of in-class time? I have lecture, I have content, I have other material to cover. In research methods, that is certainly the case. There has been some attempt at not only moving content into other formats, into podcasts, into blogs, into short videos, but also to make sure that we're doing that in a way that brings the content back for review in the form of active learning activities in this assignment, but in the course at large. So that's certainly been a challenge and a change. However, hearing from students that they do have improvements in their confidence applying research methods, they're actively collaborating with their peers, they find that collaboration rewarding and beneficial, and they're reporting improved understanding of research methods, it really has made those changes and challenges worthwhile. For this course, it has been high impact and no cost. And what's really exciting, at least to me, is that this can be applied in a multitude of other courses and disciplines. Certainly, we all are exercise professionals, but I'm sure some of you teach outside of your discipline. We can apply this type of activity widely, whether it be within evidence-based kinesiology courses or in other evidence-based classes. There are certainly opportunities for students to read, critically analyze, translate, and apply scientific literature. And certainly many of our professions are working collaboratively and presenting that research collaboratively and giving students opportunities within a course to practice those skills that they can later use as professionals has been really meaningful. I could probably talk about active learning all day. I am sure no one wants that, and I understand, but I did want to share with some of you, the QR code on the left is active learning resources. Some of them I share with students, some of them I do not. Some of them are very recent, some are some older studies. There's also a few great links that take you to ideas or examples of other active learning activities. A lot of the activities that were included in the active learning journal club assignment could be swapped out if you say, this really wouldn't work for my students. It could be replaced with others. If you would like the rubric or the assignment details, I am more than happy to share those. The QR code on the right-hand side is the link to my LinkedIn. I am happy to share any and all of these resources. I also hope that we can continue the conversation about not just active learning, but actively engaging our students in the learning process, even outside of this meeting. Lastly, I am very excited to share that I will have an article that will be published hopefully by the end of this year in the Health and Fitness Journal focused on active learning. And this is where I would plan to share that. I've been told, and I'm very excited to hear this, that there will be more education focused content. And I think that's something that we all would be interested in. So I wanted to make sure all of you knew as well. Thank you all. Thank you for this award. Thank you for this opportunity. I am happy to continue the conversation and answer any questions, whether now or after our session.
Thank
Thank you.
that we do have lots of time. We will give time for networking and connecting with each other and connecting with all the people that mean a lot to us in this education group. But I do want to open it up before you sit down to questions now. Does anyone have any questions? I know you're on the spot. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask now that would be good for everyone? Yes, I'll come to you.
Yeah, for the assignment design. Can you talk about your AI policy for an assignment like this and how you either leverage or work with students that they are using or not using, depending on what your policy is?
Yes, I am so glad you asked that because that is actually what is next, is really focusing on AI more intentionally. Presently, the course policy is that AI is not something students cannot use. However, I give very detailed instructions about how they can use it. Most of the active learning and most of this activity, AI would not be helpful for. However, when it comes to the creation of the social media posts, I heard students talk about it. It was not explicitly forbidden. However, you can tell. So, what we will be doing next semester, and this is a spring only course, is that I am going to have a more clear policy about this is how it can be used. You can give it information and have it draft an outline for you. That's certainly okay, but it needs to be your own work. I am inclined to say, not from necessarily students in this class, but actually talking to fellow faculty who are like, oh, this is what I would do, that students may be inclined to say, I don't know how to apply this, so I am going to ask AI. What we're going to do is first in class, without students knowing about this assignment, give them an article, give them an example where I'm going to ask them to think about, why is this relevant? How is this applied? And then they'll be encouraged to use AI to ask that same question. We're going to critique, weigh strengths as well as those limitations. I know that students will be using AI. I want them to see those limitations. And I do feel strongly that the more I tell students, no, you can't use it, the more likely they're to use it incorrectly. And so teaching them the limitations and really ensuring that the assignments are meaningful and wouldn't be if they used AI has become a priority, but that's new to next year. Having that AI critique is something that I plan to build into the rubric. If you have any ideas about that though, I would love some more ideas. I actually I didn't come up with the idea for the critique in that spring special interest group. Someone had mentioned that and I love that idea. And so we're going to try that as part of this assignment.
Yeah.
Thank you. And sorry if I missed this from the introduction to yours. Do you assign the students the articles that you've self-selected, or do you assign them particular topic areas for them to cover? And so if you could just give us a little bit more context on how those topics and the articles are selected.
Absolutely. And that has actually changed over time. Initially, students were welcome to pick any topic that they wanted. We got a little bit outside of the kinesiology realm. So the following year, I provided them each group with an article, And the feedback that I heard from students is that they weren't enthused about that it did not reflect their interest. In fact, they felt like it reflected my interest, which I'm sure that they did. So this past year, what we did was students were given parameters. It needs to have exercise as a main outcome. It does not have to be the only outcome of interest. It needed to be recent within the past 5 years. And if they were not able to specifically within their scope of practice talk about the applicability for a kinesiology professional, it would not be a good fit. But outside of that, students have now had flexibility, but it's something that's evolved each year based on student feedback.
Also, I do want to apologize for the lights. I don't know what happened. I'm guessing the lights were controlled by the other room over there, so we apologize for blinding everyone midway through. So, here you go, sir. My segue to walking over here.
Thank you. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your group selection? You said you don't want people to be friends, I guess, while selecting group. Maybe after they become friends, but how did you select and make sure that they had different skill sets within each group?
So the very first 2 weeks, I use an asset map. And what I ask students to do, it's adapted from an evidence-based version. I think a lot of medical school programs use that. A lot of my fellow faculty use it as well. And we kind of change it up depending on the course. I ask them to rate things like their confidence in reading and translating scientific articles. I ask them about their experience with research in other classes. And then I also ask them questions about key elements that are important for them during collaborative group work. I ask them to talk to me about their strengths when working as a group, but I also ask them to talk to me about their limitations, their weaknesses, the areas that they don't feel comfortable with. And what I do is I go through and I try to pair students who have higher confidence in one area with students who have lower confidence in that same one. Students who identify that clear communication is a priority for them in group work often work together, whereas if students identify other key elements as being really important for them in the context of group work, I try to pair those students as well. It is not a perfect science, but it's really trying to balance strengths, weaknesses, and confidence within that group dynamic.
Thank you, and congratulations on your award for your assignment. It's really interesting. I was wondering, since a big component of this project is the presentation aspect, if there's ways that you're supporting students in working on their presenting skills throughout this process.
Yes, absolutely. And I so appreciate you asking me that because that's something that I did not do the very first time. I left students to their own devices and they were a bit informal. They certainly were not practiced. Because we now have those weekly meetings with agendas and reflections, students are encouraged to practice. They're given time to practice. They are relatively small groups, typically no more than 17 per class. So we do have the chance to say, you take that corner, you take this corner, and you would have the opportunity to do that, to really implement that. We also have now started to integrate evidence-based resources about clear communication as well as presentations. I talk with students about how professionals in our field present. And I think that's been really helpful for them to hear, even just the ability to know we should not be reading directly off the slides. We're not reading off cards. They have that practice chance. We also this semester, and it got a little loud, so I need to think about how to restructure it. One group practiced for another group, which was kind of nice. We do have 2 sections to the course, and I think in the future, if I could find a way without time conflicts for one section to present to the other before they present to their own, that would be really helpful. I've not fleshed out all of those details, but they do get some practice opportunities as well as some key points for professional presentations.
Corey Zellen from Minnesota State and Cato. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You answered maybe part of this from a previous question, but where does the course fall in your curriculum, and are there any particular prerequisites for the students to achieve before taking the course?
The $1 million question. And it is not an easy problem to solve, unfortunately. Currently, this course, the only prerequisites that students have is that they need to have enough credits to be considered a junior in the kinesiology program. So all students are coming into this course with a different background. Very often students who transfer into the program, they take this course as a junior because they have adequate credits. Students who don't necessarily matriculate later on in the curriculum, they start day one as a kinesiology major. They actually very often save this course until their senior year, their final semester. So we have different confidences, different skills, different exposure to reading and translating research, which is where I think that asset mapping has been very beneficial. And I think making sure that students who have some of these skills then are paired with students who don't has been very helpful. But yes, unfortunately, I don't know if this is true for all programs, but changing the prerequisites is not something that happens overnight. I was very shocked to find that. And unfortunately, that is what we're working with. Some students, actually most students, talk about research in other classes. It's the application and really having to be the only person who reads it and translate it that tends to be unique in this particular course.
Do you set equity policies within your groups to make sure that some students are able to contribute, feel like they contribute, or kind of how do you go about that process? It sounds like they have a variety of skills. So how do you make sure that one student doesn't feel seen by other students and they're not able to actually
Actually, I really like calling it an equity policy, and I would be inclined to add in something more transparent about that in the future. That is where the group contribution rubric criteria came from. And in the full rubric, I do give them certain expectations. And off the top of my head, I can't remember, but there's X number of criteria. You must be the primary person responsible for at least X number so that they're all required to do a certain percent. The nice thing is that at least the way it is now, every group addresses it a little bit differently. I have some groups who divvy up. We all need to take 3 requirements. You take 3, you take 3, you take 3. We have some groups where all of them contribute to every aspect. So they all go about it a little bit different. But I think being more clear about how do we ensure we're being equitable and how do you actually demonstrate that, I think that's something I'd be inclined to build into those weekly reflections just to make sure as it's happening, rather than at the very end, find out if someone's not contributing or contributing perhaps too much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we've got just a couple more things that we do want to let our members know about and also encourage. And so with that, there's our Facebook page QR code there. If you're not part of that, that is one of the best places for you guys to communicate. It is very active. It's a place to ask for resources, ask for things that is there. But we also want to let you know that as a SIG for ACSM, we do support our regional chapters. So recently we were notified that the Southeast chapter is starting a regional SIG for exercise science education, and we want to support that as much as we can. And we know that there are other regional chapters doing similar things of having meetings or awards or whatever that is. So please don't neglect to let us know what's going on, because we can help advertise that information, but also support you at the regional level to then move that into the national level. We want our national SIG to be a place where people can work their way from a regional chapter into a national chapter to gain, whatever it is that you need for, whether that's tenure and promotion or trying to become a fellow or just trying to make connections. We want to be a part of that. And so Southeast has started that, but we know it's other places that sometimes we just forget about because we forget that information. And so please let us know over the next year how we can support that, how we can be a part of that and bring that in, because it really should be a trickle up effect that we're letting everyone know what's going on in their region and nationally abroad. If you're like me, you submit to your regional conference and then submit the same abstract to the national conference, right? We've all done that. Should be a very similar process for our SIG as well, with our awards and the support that we're trying to give for our talks. And so we do ask that. If there's any kind of closing remarks, Q&A, we are happy to do that. We also want to give you a time to kind of communicate or go try to grab dinner before the next thing. We all know it's a busy schedule for today if you ever look at those calendars. And so where we will leave that, but if someone has something, please come up and share that with the group, is our 73rd annual meeting is in Salt Lake City next year. There are the dates there. We've got a lovely picture of the mountains. Who doesn't want to go to Salt Lake City if you can? But we also have the QR codes for please join. If you are not sure if you're joined, please take a picture of the QR code, fill it out. I will filter it through. It's a very easy Excel thing to figure out who's been on there multiple times. I'll get rid of it. And also please scan the QR code to vote for our co-chair so that we can continue to move this forward over the next 3 years. We look forward to that. We are here to support you. So please reach out anytime, even during the summer. If you have webinar ideas for the fall and spring, we're happy to hear those as well, because my mind is pretty tapped out. A lot of us have come up with a lot of ideas. We may be tapped out, but you guys have better ideas than we do any day of the week, and we will take those. But if there is anything, please let us know. Any questions or comments or announcement that anyone would like to make before we kind of conclude? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Mark Kapanoff. I'm in community college. The last couple months, I've been working with a couple of students of mine directly related to the requirements of being a student member. And at community college, for those of you who are 4 year, okay, I come from a very dynamic program outside of right. At community college, we've got over 70% of our student body that are part-time. We're being extrapolate that across programs. 70% of our students would not be able to register as a student member for ACSM. It's fine, sure. But they're not being able to register as a student member for ACSM. I think that's extremely short-sighted on the ACSM's part. But the other part of that is that there's a ripple effect there, because when the students get done with our program and they start to sit for certification, they have to pay an additional amount because they're not a student member, they're not a member. And so I started to mobilize a little bit with over the last couple months about what I want to do this summer, in the sense of trying to mobilize some support for making that change here at the ACSM. So this is my first contact. My second contact would be to reach out to the community college program directors with the science direct science program in the state of Michigan. And finally, we're going to try to reach out to Michigan for the CSM. But I think it's going to take more than one person stirring the pot in order for that to occur. So I didn't know if that was something that the state would want to take on, or if that's something that this individual members might want to think about. Okay, for those of you who are 4-year academic, my lean into that would be, if you're accepting transfer students from community colleges, whether or not it would be beneficial to your incoming students to have 2 years of ACSM membership with maybe a conference under their belt. Because at 3rd and 4th year level, my guess is that we still got students that haven't done that yet. Okay, so if you've got any inclination here on this, I'm just looking.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We've talked about that in the past. And so it is something that we started to bring up into administration as part of our co-chair group. We do see a big thing in there. And so we do ask if it's something that touches you on community college as well, that you bring that up to whoever your representative is, whether that's the president of your chapter or whether that's the president of ACSM or whoever you know is a member. The more we can tell people that this is an issue, the more likely we are to see that change. And we are looking at that. I was actually in a meeting earlier this week with some people, and I was bringing that same thing up. What does it hurt to not? Right? That's the bigger thing, right? What does it hurt to not? And they're not going to sign up anyway. It's not like you're going to get a couple extra $100 out of them. Why would we not to hopefully get them for the next? And so that's kind of our thing with education. What does it hurt to not do things, whether it's in education or in membership? That's where we want to approach that, especially from a student side. So we appreciate you bringing that up. I know we've talked fast and happy that you brought that up. And so talk to people, talk to us, and the more people that we can have on our side, the greater we can go with those numbers to ACSM and say, we've got to make a change, right? I saw that you had your hand up. Yes.
Hi there, I'm Erin White from Winona, Minnesota, and I'm the executive director of Northland chapter. So we are Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska, we do not have a lot of R1 institutions. And something now for the last 2 years that we've implemented at our regional meeting that has been wildly successful, because we're educators, we have included a non-traditional abstract. So students doing your clinic, your journal assignment, you slap up a poster and you're able to present. You do not need IRB, like this non-traditional, you literally do not need IRB approval. It is not necessarily data driven, and we're a smaller chapter, like Southeast, great. We're never gonna have the numbers to do a thing, like that's just not who we are, right? But I wanted to put that out there because it's been wildly successful. I had students this year right? They did a biomechanics project and they made it, so they learned the poster part of it and they learned how to present. And I mean, we had 75 abstract, like it was, I mean, that's old, but like, I want you to like people like giving the students that opportunity to present, because again, we're not going to be producing massive amounts of research. So just something for you to think about, maybe asking your regional chapters if that's something, so like, that's what we're trying to get our students to do, is to get involved at lower stakes and everything. They are not eligible. I can give you more detail, like they're not eligible for awards, but again, just giving that opportunity to present, and like your thing there, your assignments would be a perfect, like, let's translate that to a poster now. And I ran a webinar on how to make a poster. But then, I mean, they were able to do that, and it's been wildly successful because we primarily serve undergrads. So.
And these are the things while we're here, and because what we want to make sure is we don't always know these things. I'm from Southeast, so I know what goes on there, right? We're all from different things. And so what we need y'all to do is definitely, all of you get emails from me, just email me back, right? Like put a new subject time so I'd see that it's not, I can't tell you how many times I send it out and I get like I'm on sabbatical. I'm like, well, what is that? How do I get my sabbatical? I've been trying to figure that out for a while. Every time I get one of those kind of emails out, I've got to figure out a different university apparently. But send us the emails with numbers, with what you're doing in your region, with what you're doing there, with the needs that you need, so that I can compile and we can compile those numbers. So when we talk at our webinars, when we talk at these meetings, we have more concrete evidence that then we can go to national ACSM. It's much easier to move at a regional conference, right? You can make those things happen much easier. Do them there. Let us know what's going on so that we can support you at the national level and say, you've got to change the student policy. You've got to allow our students to submit non-traditional abstracts. So let's make it a poster session. There's plenty of room in that hall. There's already 400 of them. What's another couple 30 or 40 or 50 to bring students in and get them involved for what may turn into something more long-term? And that's what we need to know. I can't support you if I don't know. Just letting us know is the best way. And we've got a big group here. Chris, I know you want to say something.
Okay, so let me throw an interesting twist into this whole thing. It's a question for you, because and I think you're going to like it. Okay. I am on a contract at the University of Indianapolis, but home for me is Arizona, California. I am never not going to be a member of the Southwest ACSM. So I found out that there's no rule that says that just because I'm on the faculty at University of Indianapolis, I cannot be a member of Southwest. So now it's my budget, but I get on an airplane and I'm going to Burbank in October. That's my home. And so I'm Southwest. So if I lived in Iowa or Chicago, could I submit a non-traditional abstract to your chapter and cross the Mississippi River?
So, yes, short answer, yes. We have, because of our geographical borders, we actually now have a policy in place. And if you're on the huddle, you've heard me, I will just give a brief little, our Quiz Bowl team and our President's Cup has to be a university that they have to attend a university that resides in our geographical borders. They can present and they can win, but they will not represent us here. All other research awards, they have to be a paying member. And we had this last year, we had a bunch of people from Iowa win our research awards. And so we said, we don't want them representing us here. We have people, we have a person from Iowa who recently applied for a position on our board because we don't have those policies and it makes more sense for them to be in our region. I don't think we're going to gain that much traffic. We don't want everyone from Madison, right, coming to our meetings like, oh, we can't get in here, right? Like, we're not, and I don't think we're going to have that issue. But we have had those, a lot of from Iowa and Wisconsin, absolutely cross geographical boards, and as long as they're a paying member, they are able to be an active member. We just this year instituted the policy with Quiz Bowl and President's Cup because we didn't want Madison coming and like, oh, we're gonna represent Midwest and, so yeah, no, we have a very loose policy right now, but no, there's nothing against that right now.
There could be some NIL issues here if we border like this. But I emphasize it because I talked to some powers that be this morning, and and I've heard this before. Maybe you've all heard this before. But if you want to sort of make your way through national, whether it be a committee appointment or whether you're running for office or maybe it's a presentation, I think the powers that be are looking more at what you're doing at the regional level, what you're doing at the chapter level. And so I just encourage my colleagues in the audience tonight to really take regional seriously because they want this kind of grassroots growing up through national. So thank you for mentioning that.
Also, the NIL funding, I'll take that. Yeah, I don't know how I get a sponsorship for that as teaching, but I'll take it. I'll wear whatever you want me to wear, right? I'll take it, right? Okay, sorry. With that being said, we are very thankful you have something that you'd like to.
One last thing I wanted to let everybody know, when the call comes out for abstracts for next year, we will let you know if something changes, but as of right now, any of your exercise science education information should go into the professional development organizational information category. And we will put that out on our website to make sure that you're aware. But again, just think professional development, and that will get us we used to have an exercise science education category, but no longer do. So we're going to, until we are given that back, we're utilizing the professional development category. So FYI, keep that in mind for that call for abstracts that'll be coming up sooner than we wanted to.
Perfect. If you don't like that fact, please tell your national committee member that we want an education thing that people can click and submit to. We are very, very big components of that. With that, this concludes our meeting. Please vote, please join. We will be sending this out. The best way to get the emails from me that everyone's annoyed with is join. But we thank you. Please communicate with each other. Come talk to us. We are here for you. So we thank you very much, and you'll have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.